And are we all good with Franklin TV?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
All right, great. Then time being 7:02, I call to order the Franklin School Committee meeting. Meetings are recorded by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 29, as well as recorded by Franklin Matters. All right, and then we'll start with pledge. Do we have any pledge students in the council chambers right now?
I see the Gallagher children that might be willing to do the pledge. You want to do the pledge with us?
I'll stand with you.
I'll do it for you if you want. All right.
All right, 1 second.
We'll all do it together. How about that?
All right, then
Okay, ready?
take it away, guys.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job, guys.
And as is customary, we'll pause for a moment of silence. Thank you all very much. And one more, can I just have any of the school committee members say something? At the moment, I wasn't here in some of the council chambers.
Can you hear us?
Hello? Dave?
We can all hear us, it's okay.
Dave, can you hear us?
All right, and let me ask, KP, are you hearing anything right now?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
You're hearing it, okay. It's just-
All right.
All right. Review of agenda. Does the agenda look good to everybody?
Yep, looks good.
Payment of bills is taken care of. Payroll, Vice Chair McNeil.
Payroll's in order?
All right. I know it's the eve of school starting. Do we have any FHS student reps?
There's no student reps this evening, but we will have them starting next meeting. It's the night before school. We thought we'd give them the night off.
That was good of us.
Then superintendent's report.
Hi, are you hearing any of this? Okay. So you only hear it when it's the feedback loop. Like that? Is that computer is on?
Do we need that computer installed?
If you want to do that, you can. I'm gonna call you. I think you could say that for the Darren.
I apologize, everyone, having a little technical issues. I think the only time I'm hearing audio in the council chambers, there's a lot of that feedback loop going on. Right now, Vice Chair McNeil, might kind of kick it over to you if you don't mind grabbing the gavel and running the meeting, and then I'll try to get this resolved and join back in a bit.
Absolutely, we hope to see you soon. All right, superintendent's report.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to kick off with a few updates. First off, the opening day for staff occurred yesterday. It began yesterday, and it transitioned into school. So Monday, October 26th, we welcome the FPS staff to the FHS Franklin High School auditorium with around a central theme focused on We Are Franklin Public Schools and unifying our district. The day commenced with some opening remarks after staff were greeted by a few parents, some school committee members, administrators, and students as they entered the gymnasium area. And our Panther was on site too. The program began with some staff recognitions and opening remarks to help us frame our school year. The Office of Teaching
The
and
host has been muted. Sorry.
gave an overview of the year's goals. Can you hear that, KP?
He got muted again.
There's two.
We should just
One of the connected laptops is still sending. And every time we unmute the studio one, that's where the feedback comes.
All right, this is a charger.
That's just a charger. You're not in Zoom.
I don't have any other device.
You're not in Zoom. Anybody that's in Zoom, that's all.
This is a cooperative team building exercise.
This room is just reassembled.
Yeah.
How's your ear?
Handbooks are good? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Ask you in a couple of hours.
For here.
Yeah,
Put forward a motion to pass the handbook.
because Zoom control takes the control over
All right.
Microsoft.
So this right here is telling me speaker Samsung connected.
It's a plug for a digital learning specialist.
Yeah, that's it.
And connect?
I think, no, that's it. That's one's on.
Yeah. But everything's muted. The volume.
Yeah, I was like, I can't answer this right now.
need one right
That's right. So I was like, I gotta go for walking, if they're walking, and all of a sudden, she's like, I'm so tired. I'm like, I'm right
Let's try
behind you.
that.
So I went out, Beacon's coming around the corner.
It's like the mid, late afternoon.
KP, can you hear us?
Here.
You'll need a nap at 10 a.m.
KP, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can KP call in?
We could just, the problem is anyone on Zoom is going to have the same issue. It's not just our teammates.
true.
Do we still need a couple minutes?
I think it's because of the renovation.
They put this together again?
Yeah.
We did have a meeting a couple weeks ago and it was fine.
Okay. Committee will be in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
You're listening to 102.9 WFPRLP, Franklin Public Radio.
Okay. School committee will resume. All right. Take two. Superintendent's report.
On Monday, August 26th, we welcomed the FPS staff to the FHS Gymnasium to welcome them for the opening day, surrounded around a theme of 3 feet in front of you, and we are Franklin Public Schools. The day commenced with members being greeted by some of our parents, students, school committee members, administrators, and our FHS Panther. The program began with staff recognitions and opening remarks to help us frame the school year. The Office of Teaching and Learning gave an overview of this year's goals as well. The staff then transitioned to the gymnasium to enjoy coffee, light refreshments, and reconnect with colleagues. Following this, staff broke into groups of around 20 to engage in group discussions that centered around 2 questions. In what ways are you looking forward to growing professionally this year and building connections with students and colleagues? And what support do you need? Those discussions, based on the folks that facilitated, reported back that those are really fruitful discussions, and I think there's a lot for us to take away from that as we plan for this school year. And we wrapped up the morning session coming together to watch a video produced by Heather Moreau from our video department, our video department, and it was students who basically put together a video celebrating teachers and thanking them for their hard work. We will share that video and post that publicly, but we wanted to make sure our teachers had a chance and our educators and leaders had a chance to see that first, and we concluded the morning that way. Many staff members appreciated the pace of the morning and the tone of the messaging to start the day, and the atmosphere was overall very positive. Today, the school-based teams kicked off their work and with their welcoming back staff, and led by many of our outstanding principals that you see here today, along with their colleagues, to frame the year from a school-based perspective. So I want to give a big shout out to our principals and our assistant principals who played a huge role in making that happen today. Our district leadership team had the chance to travel throughout the district to see many of the opening day activities and see the staff come together as a school. And I want to just once again send my heartfelt gratitude to all of our leaders for making today really meaningful for teachers and carrying forth what I felt was a successful day yesterday. And I think it really sets us up for the year we're about to embark on. There's an update from staffing. Our HR director, Ken Storlazzi, prepared a staffing update, which I shared with you earlier. And just for the public, this summer we've hired 44 positions, and we still have positions to fill that are either in process of hiring or that we still need to fill. We continue to hire for open positions. As of August 27th, with those 44 positions, there are 6 teacher vacancies, 9 ESP vacancies, and 9 non-union vacancies. So we have several candidates in the pipeline, and we've received a total of 48 resignations throughout the summer season. Most of those resignations we received over the last 2 weeks, and many of them have been instructional interventionist and educational support personnel. And a breakdown of vacancies by position have been provided to the committee. Transportation, this was a big piece. We've received many calls and emails just with asking for clarification on transportation as of today. So we sent out a general email to the community, but many individuals have received individual communications regarding their specific transportation circumstances. So with that letter sent from the transportation department, I've condensed the letter into some bullet points tonight for the community and for the school committee to provide more clarity. And this information can also be found on the transportation page of the website. It's the first document that you'll see when you go to that link. The first thing I'll say is, at this time, any student who registered and fully or partially paid before the July 31st deadline has been placed on a bus. At this point, all students, grades K through 6, that are over 2 miles from their school have been assigned to a bus. If you've registered by the deadline and made at least a partial payment, you should receive or will receive a direct email with the name of your child, the bus stop assigned, and the time the bus will pick you up. If you've met this criteria but have not been assigned a bus, please contact Ms. Malati directly for assistance, or you can email the school bus link that we've put in the communications that goes to Ms. Malati and her team. Families who registered and paid after July 31st have been waitlisted, and we are assigning bus passes based on available space in the order in which they've registered and paid. If you've been waitlisted, you will also receive an email indicating that you're waitlisted. We continue to work. The staff has been working really hard to accommodate as many people after the July 31st deadline to get as many students on buses at this point. It's a process where we have to re-examine routes and look at bus stops and drop-offs and try to accommodate for that. And we're doing that and modifying that and trying to accommodate where we can. If you registered before the deadline but no longer require a bus seat, please email schoolbus@franklinps.net so that we can process your refund and assign that seat to another student. Some families, including my own, registered for a bus thinking we would need it. Thankfully, we were in a situation where we no longer required transportation, and I was able to let the transportation department know that those 2 seats can be filled by someone who may need them. Buses will be available. Bus passes will be available to children who have been assigned to a bus on September 4th. The bus drivers have been instructed to wait until September 16th before checking bus passes. As a result, buses are likely to be crowded for the first few weeks while we finalize routes and those who registered and paid prior to the extended deadline. After September 16th, only students who have a bus pass will be able to ride a bus. This is a common practice that we have where we start the year off while we're sorting it out as adults. We allow kids to enter a bus to kick the first few weeks while we confirm the lists and the routes. The students living in the emergency shelter have a dedicated bus beyond our usual bus numbers that we have, and this money was paid through the earmarked stake funds that we already received and does not impact our current situation as it exists. And I refer people back to the transportation page for the revised bus routes so they can find the stop that's closest to their home. And finally, this situation is not a result of a failed override or any other financial issue. It's due to a higher number of registrants in certain schools on specific routes, as well as registrations and payments that were received after the deadline. And I wanted to thank everyone for their patience and understanding. We'll continue to work through our process. Ms. Malati is personally overseeing this process at this point to make sure that we resolve as many issues as possible. And we'll continue to update folks. They'll continue to see emails come through once they've been approved. That concludes my superintendent's report for the evening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Go down the line.
Yeah, a couple of things. Kind of going back to staffing, is the number of vacancies that we have at the moment, kind of something that we typically see? Is it a higher number than you'd usually see? And where are we in terms of being able to fill those for students and families?
I would say this number, typically we try to come into the year. We've had situations we've hired staff. I think I heard a principal comment this morning that it's the first year he's hired his staff and then not been ghosted on day one where someone just doesn't show up. That's happened. And but I would say that number, this is a little bit higher than I think we typically see.
Okay.
To have the number of vacancies, I think we're seeing it, particularly when I think of the number of ESPs that are unfilled as we enter the year. And I would say it's a higher number than we typically have seen.
And do you feel like that you have applicants coming in for those positions, or is it harder to get applicants in the door for those positions?
I mean, I'll speak for our team. I think it gets increasingly difficult as the season goes on. Mm-hmm. I think prime season, when people are actually the highest number of pools, is when we're looking at right after the April vacation. People come back, they start to look. If you think about it from a perspective of someone changing a job and a location, it makes sense at that point so you can get your ducks in a row and line up and conclude your year, give enough notice. Unfortunately, I think our cycle of how we've operated and kind of the budget timeline. I think the time in which we lay off, we kind of work backwards to the meeting where we get our funding approved. But I do think, when I look at this, I think we get to the summer and it gets increasingly challenging, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Okay, and then moving into transportation, do you have a sense of how many students are still looking for transportation that haven't been resolved yet?
We currently have 31 students that are waitlisted. We will be able to assign a few of them throughout this week. As we were able to, I met with the bus transportation with Brian, and we were able to add an extra bus to Horace Mann. So we are able to accommodate more students. It's a time-consuming process, being replying to all the emails I can. But I believe that by Friday, I can have a better number for you guys.
Okay, thank you so much for all of, I know that the last day especially has been a lot getting through all of the emails out to folks and you know, kind of moving people around to make sure that we can get as many kids on the bus as possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Paul? So yeah, first I wanted to reiterate, just how much I appreciate the efforts that you've put in, Jana, over the past 24 hours. I can just imagine the sheer number of emails, but I know that you've been very responsive where you can, and I appreciate that you've been responding with action instead of just kind of a continued hold button. So thank you very much for that, and your staff. I know it's a lot, but we do appreciate that. One question I had was regarding the number of buses that we have this year. Is it roughly the same as past years, the same number of buses?
It is the same number of buses with the addition of the hotel bus that we added and the new Horace Mann bus that we just added today. So we have 2 routes.
Okay. Thank you. Al?
Yep. All right. So one, thank you for just a good start in terms of the opening day. It was great to see the teachers come in and staff come in. I have to say my children were not necessarily like, this was the first thing they wanted to do, but I think after the teachers started flowing in, and they started seeing like the teachers that they've had at younger grades, and it was just kind of like, oh, this is great, and they had a blast.
You couldn't tell they didn't want to be there, the way they were dancing.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, they definitely warmed up really, really fast. But that was really great to see all the educators, and thank you all for just coming in and starting the year off right, and really strong. The question I had a few questions. I know that there was a lot of resignations, and you said primarily from the ESPs. Do we know, what was the reasoning behind that first, I guess?
So I can answer the process we go through. I send a letter to anyone who resigns that says that I accept their resignation and wish them the best. And then we have 2 options for them. They can book a meeting to sit with me to talk through the reasons they've resigned, or they can fill out a form. I don't receive a lot back once people have made that decision. I do have a handful of folks who've submitted the form, and what I will be doing is looking through that data. Some of these were more recent, to really look at, see if there's a theme, so that we can look from that. That was a recommendation 3 years ago that we put in place just to make sure that we had some way of kind of tracking and getting a sense of why people would leave. So it's really tough to tell with ESPs and our instructional interventionists, just given the nature of some of the positions and where folks can work. So what I will do is I will share out whatever I hear as far as if there's any common themes.
Okay, thank you. And I guess for the public that may not be familiar with what ESPs do, I guess what is the impact to our students' education because of the lack of ESPs?
I would be happy to answer. Our ESPs, so we have ESPs who help support IEP services, so they support our students within the general ed classroom, doing some reteaching and pre-teaching. I'm right. Thank you, Mrs. Krikorian. Reteaching and pre-teaching, making sure students are getting their accommodations that are outlined in their IEP. They also help with students who need breaks throughout the day due to sensory challenges, and they also help support and monitor students in in the unstructured time, such as recess and lunch and hallways and bathrooms and whatnot. So they're very important. Many of them are tied to legal minutes in the students' IEPs. So what we do is we get creative, and our principals and assistant principals are very good at that, making sure that services are still being delivered, but it's all hands on deck and everyone helping out.
Gotcha, great. So these are, in essence, the glue folks. Like, I mean, we all know our teachers that send the emails to say, hey, welcome to the classroom, but these are the people that help support all those gaps and really make it so the teachers can do their jobs effectively and efficiently. So,
Absolutely.
okay, great. So, so definitely unsung heroes.
Correct.
So for those that volunteer for PCCs, make sure when you are donating and whatnot, make sure you're thinking about the, these are the teachers that help your students as well. Okay, thank you. And then looking at the positions, this reminds me of like 2 years ago. I feel like last year we were in a good space with hiring. The year before we were struggling and trying to catch up throughout the year. I see we have the assistant director of HR. I'm assuming this is needed because of to help do all of the hiring. Is that
Correct.
okay?
Correct.
And then the junior district administrator. Can you just elaborate on that one a little bit? I'm not too sure what that was.
The junior network administrator?
Junior district administrator. It's under the district-wide section. It wasn't there for the August 13th vacancy, so I wasn't too sure what that was.
We can check right now.
Or is that a typo?
It might be. Let me just see.
Okay.
That should say junior network administrator.
Okay.
That's a
Okay.
current position we have in the technology department that's existed. There's a network administrator and a junior network administrator.
Gotcha.
It's a two-person team that runs all the networking for the schools in the town.
Okay.
So that's a typo.
Okay.
That's a good catch.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah. So
I was thinking junior district administrator.
exactly.
that?
I was
Is that like
I
an
wasn't too sure what that was.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then the last question I have is around transportation, or at least a slew of questions. So just so I understand correctly, for the transportation process, at the end of the school year, we put out, if you need bus, please sign up by X date, pay by X date, and it was at a certain price, at like $360. We had the failed override. Some people had done it and they paid the $360, but then come deadline, but then it raised, so people had to pay the difference. So come deadline, there were people that hadn't paid fully, and those folks are all set.
Yes.
And then the folks that are now impacted are folks that either signed up and did not pay at all, or did not sign up for a bus initially. Is that-
The folks that are waitlisted currently, whoever registered after August 1st, either making a payment or not, they are on the wait list.
Okay.
Everyone else that we assigned the bus, they either paid in full by the 31st, or they're still paying, they're on a payment plan.
Gotcha. Okay. So I feel like for the most part, the folks that did what they did, met the deadline, they're not negatively impacted or penalized. I mean, this is kind of like just BAU. If it was any other year, you came in late, you're on the wait list.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, because I think from like an outside in, like the way it kind of snowballed. I mean, this is what I thought it was, but folks are just making it bigger than it really is, and I thank you for the clarity. I do appreciate that there is accommodation being done. I guess when that's done, though, that impacts the full bus route. So, for example, if my bus stop was at 6:50, we'll say, and it was changed, my time could change, and as a result, I would get communication for that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've done that each year. We've made adjustments after that 2-week buffer period to just get a sense of the bus routes. The bus drivers provide feedback, and they do make slight changes to routes. It has occurred in the past, so that's not a result of this particular issue. And I appreciate you walking through the timeline, because there are folks that fall into a category where they didn't meet the timeline. And we're trying to, just like we normally would, it just definitely The other piece of it is, I think, the one piece I would say is when people registered for a bus by the deadline, after the deadline, there was no indication that it was failed. So I think that caused a delay in people knowing, and I think that's where the communication piece. So we have debriefed the process and the system, and we're going to be working next year to figure out how can we, obviously we try to learn from all situations. It doesn't change the fact that there was a deadline that needed to be met, but on the flip side, I think it just would provide a layer of, an added layer of communication that I think would have helped this not become as prominent as it was to start the year off.
Yep, understood. Yep, and thank you for acknowledging that and looking for a path forward to improve it next time. Thank you. So.
Thank you all. Ruthann?
Thanks for the great kickoff. I think that I saw some emails and it seems like the staff was very pleased with your kickoff. Somebody wrote that it's the best they've ever had in 18 years, which is something to be said considering how last year ended, kind of tough. So thanks for keeping everyone's morale up.
It's a team effort, I think everyone in this room.
Yes, thanks to all of you. Hiring 44 people this summer is remarkable for one HR person, essentially, kind of doing that work. Just typically in the private sector, there's like one HR person per 50 employees or per maybe 100 employees or 200 employees. So we have like, 1,100 employees. So that's remarkable work. I'd be remiss if I didn't address something that was published today. We have a kind of a blogger in town who kind of came on the offense a little bit at you guys. So just, I talked to many parents who resented the article that was put out in Franklin, not by Steve Sherlock, never by Steve Sherlock, but it was just a bit of a gut punch and didn't offer the schools any grace. And so with the transportation issue, so I would, I know, Lucas, you mentioned none of this occurred because of the override. And I think literally, yes, it's not like we're short a bus because we can't afford the bus. But I would cross-examine that a little bit, that, if we had maybe another admin in the office working with Jana or any of you, that maybe it would create a less of a bandwidth problem for your staff. I know that this summer's been very challenging. And there was emails that went out in May, in June, and extended to July. So, there was that for people to be able to sign up for the buses. So you're handling it. You're great. And obviously, as a district, we're not proactively like, when you plan a wedding, sometimes you pay for an extra table in case, Aunt Jane and Uncle Joe don't RSVP and they show up. But we don't have that kind of luxury here in the district to be able to kind of, just in case, assuming more kids sign up, let's just contract an extra bus, because that would cut into like teachers and things like that. So everyone kind of already answered my questions, but just appreciate all the hard work. One thing that was sort of said in that article this morning was, this is a problem. You would think that like, by the end of the summer, this would all be figured out. And if people saw you guys in here moving boxes, filling filing cabinets while the carpets are being torn up, moving computers, hiring 44 people, fixing schedules, like it's a lot. So I get that a lot of these requests that are coming in are sort of having to be triaged. So thank you. I don't know if there's a question there, but it's just thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Ruthann. And to our members online, KP, do you have any questions?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank the great picture to Lucas. I love the signs, VR, FPS signs everywhere in those pictures. Really a lot of positive vibe across our school district. We saw so many WhatsApp photos as well. So thank you for that. And second thing is in transportation, we got very positive feedback the way you guys handled the issues with the students. However, we heard that they are still hiring the drivers for buses. So is there any problem with the drivers? You are anything aware of that? Because in the coming week is very important for our students. Because they're still in the process of hiring drivers.
I know that across the state, many of the bus companies are struggling to secure drivers. We have the drivers we need through Holmes Bus. However, with Jana requesting an in-person meeting with the owner of the company today to really put a real thoughtful, sincere request in for our need and try to advocate for our district. When they service many other districts, she was able to get that bus. So I would credit Ms. Malati, who's developed, in a very short time, a good working relationship with our bus company. And at this point, I do not believe that we have a driver issue on our hands at this time. That can always change, just like my example of the principal who got ghosted on day one in previous years. You could always have that happen, but at this point, I don't believe we have a driver shortage specifically in Franklin Public Schools at this time with the company.
Okay, thank you. I just, my final request is, to be alert, for coming week, for the parents, transportation gives first priority. We ever don't have transportation or any special request in the last minute. If we can, please try to accommodate them. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, KP. And Chair Callahan.
All right, thank you very much. Chair McNeil, thanks for kind of taking over right now, too. Lucas, just kind of two things on transportation. So I know you kind of mentioned it during the superintendent's report, but just to confirm, because kids are going to get picked up in less than 12 hours right now. So right now, if there's a kiddo outside their house tomorrow morning, will, regardless of when folks registered, when they paid, whatever the situation is, will the bus be stopping to pick them up and bring them to school?
Yes. They've been instructed to do so.
Every bus driver's been instructed to do so and to pick the kids up, regardless of the bus pass, the timing, no matter what. Every kid who's outside tomorrow morning will be delivered and transported to their school.
Yes, for this probationary period, with the caveat that that's also going to create some crowding on buses that we anticipate and we experience every year, and then we'll need to settle down and suss through who's on a bus and who's not.
To clarify without speaking out of turn, they still need to be at a bus stop, right?
They have to be at a bus stop. Yes,
I wanna
thank you for the clarification.
People aren't standing at their front door waiting.
No,
They have to go to the closest bus stop.
Correct.
And for that, appreciate that. With that, in terms of the closest bus stops, that's something that everybody can kind of find right online. I know it was listed in that email that talks about all of the bus stops for each of the schools, correct? Along with like an approximate timeline about when that bus will be arriving.
Correct. On the main page, it's a transportation icon on the top right, but you can also just search for the transportation page directly.
Okay, terrific. Just so at least to kind of assuage some concerns and some fears right now. So for any of the parents that are out there, families, guardians listening, your kiddo will be brought to school if they're at a proper bus stop on time tomorrow morning, and for that probationary period through September 16th.
Yes.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay, great. And then additionally, I appreciate you mentioning that you are already kind of working with your team to kind of figure out different solutions to ensure that this does not happen in the future. Perhaps, I know we can kind of chat about it later as well, but I would love to see if we can pick a date, preferably by the end of the calendar year, where we can kind of circle back to that and have that presented at like a school committee meeting. So that way everybody kind of knows the changes that will be implemented, just to ensure that this does not happen again for any subsequent school years.
So I will say two things. One, yes, we can follow up on that. The one thing we cannot do, and I want to be very clear with everyone in this community, if we put out a deadline to register, we need that information so the bus company knows how many buses we need. And we will account for who we can predict that we will need to transport, but we cannot. So even with the best system in place, if you don't register your children, it's really hard for us to plan it. We can't tell the bus company in August what we need. We lucked out more recently for one bus, but we need to have that information as you backwards plan, just like you would anything that requires that level of organization to make happen. So I just want to be clear, we will put deadlines out, we will communicate them, but none of this is going to change. The people that are waiting right now did not meet a deadline. And I'm not saying that to incite emails. I'm not saying it for that reason. What I'm telling you, though, I'm just trying to be honest with everyone. If you don't register by the time of a deadline, it's hard for us to be able to commit and guarantee. That said, I think on our end, I think the communication on when you register to get confirmations, if it's closed, that you receive a direct message that it's closed, gives you the information you need to know what your next steps may be. And I think that's what we will commit to, is to have a system in place that allows people to understand in real time where they're at. And I just want to put that out there as, we deal with this annually, and I've dealt with it in previous districts as well, but I just want to be clear about deadlines and why we have them so that we can plan effectively.
Nope, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And otherwise, I'm good.
Thank you.
They did one thing.
Sure, Al.
Sorry, and I just remembered this. So I know, this may be just for the school committee in general, before our first terms, I know that there was like a liaison on the school committee for like the school buses. I don't know if that's something that we want to revisit.
It was?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought Tim Keenan was on it, like the bus routes or something. I could be wrong, but I thought there may have been, well before us, so I don't know.
You can look into that.
Yeah, maybe if it's something just like from a liaison perspective.
Ancient history.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right, thank you. And other than that, I just want to thank you and your entire team for all the preparation work you've been doing over the summer for the start of the year, and wishing everyone in your entire team a great start to the year, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then, moving right along, discussion action items. I understand that we have some presentations regarding the handbook, so could we just do all the presentations for all the different levels all at once? Would that make the most sense?
I'm fine with that. So
Excellent.
I wanted to just thank the Mrs. Morano, who oversees the Department for Student Services and also has worked with our principals and assistant principals to update our handbooks at a time where it was a very busy summer, but this was certainly one of the priorities they've worked on. They've put together a presentation, and I'll kick it over to Paula to share a little bit more so that you have the information you need.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shiger. Still my words, but yes, this summer, amongst trying to take some vacation time and do some hiring, our principals and assistant principals got together to review and revise our handbooks at all levels. I'll call up Dr. Weber and Mr. Walsh, Ms. B. Savage and Ms. Harvey, as well as Mr. Williams, to present some of the changes. So as they make their way up to the desk, I will explain that we have 3 sections to our handbooks. Section 1 are the school-specific handbook, school-specific information and procedures for every school. This year, there were no substantial changes to that Section 1, other than maybe changing some names or changing some dates or whatnot. Section 2 of our handbook is the level-based policy and procedures, which will be presented tonight. A few of the minor changes as well as the major changes that were made. And then our Section 3 is our school committee policy section of the handbook. So those are the policies that you all reviewed throughout the previous school year and read twice and then adopted. And the only change for that one is the meal charge policy and procedure, which you did adopt on June 18th. So I would like one of our panelists introduce themselves because we have some new administrators up there at the desk, and then they can begin.
Hi, good evening. I'm Carrie B. Savage, principal at Helen Keller Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Amy Harvey. I'm the assistant principal at Parmenter and Kennedy this year.
Craig Williams, principal of Remington Middle School.
Hi, Maria Weber, principal of Franklin High School.
And Mike Walsh, assistant principal at the high school.
Great. I'm not sure who's in charge of the... There you go. Oh, we can go to the next slide.
High school. Okay, I guess I'm up. So we only had one substantive change in our handbook that you may be familiar with. It is the change to our cell phone policy. We did have a cell phone policy in place, however, we just made some clearer expectations in terms of when and where it is permitted during different times of the day in school. So cell phones are not permitted during class time. The expectation is that they are placed in a cell phone holder that is located in each classroom. Cell phones must remain in the classroom when a student leaves. So if they need to go to the bathroom or a house office or visit guidance and are expected to return to class, they should leave their cell phone in the classroom. Times during the day when cell phones are permitted are during passing time, lunchtime, and during direct study periods. Some minor changes that we had to our handbook involve graduation credits. There's a section that talks about the number of credits that is required for each grade level, and you'll notice that it varies, and the reason why it varies is because of the recent changes to our programs of studies over the last few years. The most recent one is the implementation of personal finance as a course that's it's required. And then prior to that, last year we added an art requirement, and then prior to that it was a world language additional requirement. So that's why there's a change in the number of credits that is listed for each grade level. There's a small change to our dress code policy. It's mainly related to physical education classes. The expectation is that students have appropriate footwear so they can be the most productive and also be safe during their activities. And another change we made was to our search policy. So this section is really, the search policy is really relevant to our code of conduct and procedural part of how we interact with students when there is a suspicion of something inappropriate. It's maybe a vape device or anything that requires, that raises suspicion of something that could potentially be unsafe. So we wanted to clarify the language for students and families that if an administrator identifies the need and asks the student to search their belongings, and that's a process where we just kind of go through a backpack of the student. We hope that typically, it comes with cooperation, but sometimes students choose to refuse, and that's typically not a choice that we would support. So we needed to add a little bit of language that said very clearly that if you choose to refuse to allow a search, or you choose to run after we've asked a student to escort us to the office where we could ask some questions and find out some more information, then that is an admission of guilt. So for whatever the suspected infraction might be, we would move forward with the due process of assuming that student did in fact partake in the activity or had the suspicious item that we suspected.
So for the middle schools did not have substantial changes for school year 24-25. Over the past few years, there have been a lot of changes in our handbook, making sure that all three middle schools are on the same page, aligned both vertically with elementary and then progressing developmentally to the high school. So really our focus is more so as the three middle schools will next year, or in 25-26, be turning into one, making sure that we're really as consistent as possible in the enforcement of the handbook. So that will be a major focus of the administration as opposed to tweaking the handbook. That said, we do have some minor changes. We wanted to articulate with our cell phone policy of expecting the cell phones to remain in students' lockers. Again, the developmental difference between middle school and high school, that we want to put in that same type of restriction for headphones and earbuds, making sure that, living in the distracted world that we live in, that when a teacher's providing instruction or the student's expected to be working with a group in class, they're not listening to music. As we know, that's not going to help them focus. So making sure that we articulate that, unless they have, they're instructed to do so by a teacher for academic purposes. If they do help, if it is independent work and the student will benefit from being able to listen to music in that moment, and a teacher provides that discretion, then the student can have their headphones. The other tweak we had a tiered response to absences articulated in the handbook. with the increased amount of, like all schools in the Commonwealth, an increased amount of tardies, we wanted to make sure that we were tiering our responses for tardies as well. And tardies can be caused by a multitude of reasons, and so knowing that, having a system in place in which we start off making sure that we are addressing what the issue is, what's causing that student to be late, and then providing more responses in terms of if it requires some mental health support, community resources, and making sure that we can help the student be able to come to school on time, ready to learn, because we know that when a student's routinely tardy, it adds to the bandwidth of trying to sustain, trying to learn, and so these are habits that we want to help them try to promote being on time and ready. So those are the tweaks we made at the middle level.
Great, and at the elementary level, we have some minor changes, specifically in language, but first we have our dress code, which does align closely with the middle school. Hats and head coverings are allowed during the school day. However, they can't be a distraction to the learning environment, so we will ask students to remove the hat if that's a problem. We are asking that hoodies are not allowed to be worn on their heads. For that reason, more of a connection reason, when they have their big hoodies over their heads, we can't see their eyes, and we can't try to connect with the student. We can't see if they're engaged, we can't see how they're feeling. So we are asking that hoodies to be lowered or put down. The other change is to footwear, similar to the high school. We are asking that all footwear for PE is required for sneakers. That again is another safety issue, not just muscle and bone and issues, but also being outside on that playground and on the fields, they can have contact with rocks and sticks, so that becomes a safety issue as well. For arrival and dismissal, we are asking, we have these beautiful signs just made up at the 5 elementary schools that are, congratulations, hooray, you're on time. We're going to have a great day. And then at 8:30, when that is our bell to come in and be on time and be in your classroom, it does say, oops, you're late. Please park your car and bring your child into the building to sign your child in. So we are asking that parents sign their child in if they are late arriving to school. That again is a safety issue where sometimes parents will drop their student off at the door thinking that it'll just be a quick second for them to get buzzed in, and if there's no one at the front desk, at the office, sometimes they're out there at not an expected time frame. And finally, absenteeism. We are looking to add the language of chronic absenteeism is anything greater than 10% of a term. And so what we want to add is of a term. So a term is 60 days, 10% of that is 6 days. If a student is absent for 6 days, a letter will go home at the end of the term, just notifying the parents and caregivers of the amount of days that they are out, and coming up with a way that we can just meet and support the student and the family to get the child in on time and in during the day. And then we did delineate out what exactly is an excused absent versus an unexcused absence. So some excused absences are anything that's documented by a well visit, a doctor's note, dentist's note, a documented injury or illness, a bereavement, major religious observation, and then anything extraordinary family circumstances is at the discretion of the principal. Anything else would be an unexcused absence. So we just wanted to really get that in there specifically. And then finally, for family vacations, if a student is out for 10 or more days, they are unenrolled in the Franklin Public Schools, and they are asked to re-enroll before they come back to school. So that we just want to be specific in that language for family vacations.
Thank you. And as Mrs. Harvey was saying too, some of the tweaks in our language to the handbook are just reiterating. Sometimes one word can place a little bit more emphasis on a policy that was in existence, but we just wanted to draw more attention to that and be really clear and specific. For cell phones, the elementary handbook policy does progress to like middle school in terms of what's appropriate. So cell phones must be off, and if they're off, they're silent, but remaining in a student's backpack. So not in a desk, not in their pockets of their sweatshirt, but keeping them in their backpack. If a student needs to place a call, teachers can help support that, the front office can help support that if they need to be in contact with a parent during the school day, okay? Same applies to smartwatches in terms of being off and silenced, and in backpacks during the school day as well. We have the same language if, and they can be used, once students leave the building. A lot of times parents like to communicate with students once they leave. They can turn their phones on as they enter, as they're walking or if they're on the bus. If there's reason to believe that the phone is being used or misused, I guess, by a student during the day, then it is with administration kind of that phone is held, and that it is stored in the office, and it can be subject to search as well at that time, if there's reason to believe it was misused. So that's just some language around cell phones. Forgotten items. This we wanted to note, it falls in line with the visitor management email that and letter that Dr. Rogers shared today, but just sort of noting that if there are, because this will be a shift at elementary, if a family is coming on campus to deliver a library book, a water bottle, something that they're leaving, all of our vestibule areas will be equipped with tables and post-it notes to label where we're dropping off items. In terms of entering the office for something like that. Dismissals regarding health, doctor's appointments that require entry to be signed out, families will be coming in to do that. So we just wanted to note that in the handbook. The last was, we did not previously have a statement around retention, and we just wanted to acknowledge that there is a process for parents to request a meeting regarding retention between January 30th and March 30th. So the process has been in place in our schools, but we just wanted to make sure that was included as part of the language of our handbook.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. Yeah, we'll do questions before we do the vote. So I'll go on online. Erin, any questions?
No specific questions, I don't think. Just thank you for all these clearly thoughtful adjustments to the language within the manuals. That's it.
Paul?
Yeah, I had two questions and one comment. So for the high school search policy, I just wanted to kind of double check, from my understanding, this is something really a matter of keeping people safe. So you don't have anyone chasing someone down, someone tripping, someone getting hurt. So that's really kind of the center focus on that, correct? It's just keeping people safe instead of chasing after somebody.
Sure. So yes, it's also, part of the process. Clearly, we want to keep the student involved safe, but also we need to make sure that the student doesn't have anything that potentially could be exposed to other students, making them unsafe. And that's really the purpose behind a search.
Okay. And then with that search, just for clarity, based on the language there, does the admin need to declare what they suspect at some point in time during that process, or is it just they ask for a search? I just want to make sure that we're pretty clear on that.
Sure. So if we would only be doing a search if we had reasonable suspicion that there was something unsafe. So it might be, for instance, in the bathrooms, an odor of marijuana. And so that would result in a search. So the students would be brought into the office and searched, but again, only on the basis of some sort of reasonable suspicion. Could be a teacher reported hearing something, smelling something, seeing something.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I think there are different classifications of what could or could not be suspected, and that admission of guilt can really go pretty far with what could basically come out of that based on certain safety concerns versus just substance concerns or other contraband, things like that. So that's just one thought, kind of going forward, that we're specific as to what we, basically what those consequences could be by declaring what we suspect in the first place. If a student's going to be searched, telling them what we suspect, if they're going to stand there and accept it, that's one thing. But if they're going to take off, at least having some kind of clarification as to what is that outcome might be helpful.
I'll say that it's always explained in the process.
Okay,
Yeah, when
great,
we-
that's
yeah,
it.
we
That's
start
what
talking-
I'm asking.
Yeah, yep, absolutely, and sometimes even when we notice the student's resistant, that's when we'll contact the parent and say, your student's here in the office, this is what we suspect, and typically the parents will, are on board and say, please go forward. So it is thoroughly explained, I will say.
Fantastic.
You know.
Okay, well, thank you. And then my other question was actually for the middle school side of things. So this tardiness tiering, is that along the same basically schedule as the absence tiering, or is it more delayed? Is it sooner? Kind of how does that?
Yeah, I'd say it's very similar, following the idea of like 10% of students, 10% of the school days is considered, chronic if you exceed that number. So we're following along that similar path.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Al?
Yep, so a few questions. So the high school cell phone policy, so can you elaborate like what the process is with that holder, the storage system? Like how does that work?
Yeah, so actually, prior to COVID, we had a system of using these classroom sort of containers. They're like pocket holders. They're numbered. There's about 30 to a holder, and they hang up in the classroom. And the student just would walk in and place their phone in it. We really started that process, and it really caught on. And then unfortunately, COVID put a pause to it, and then it wasn't reinstated in the same way. So we were fortunate to have a lot of those cell phone holders already. So we only needed to purchase just a few more, which was great. So they are available in every single classroom. We are trying to be consistent about the placement of those. So it's really easy for the student to just come in, know exactly where to look, know exactly where to put it, so that the expectation is just consistent across every classroom as much as possible.
Gotcha, okay. So in pretty much, they go to their first period class, the expectation is that they take their cell phone, they put it in a X numbered pouch, they go do their class duties, whatever the class may be. At the end of the class, then they take it before they go to the next class. Is that kind of the process?
Exactly.
Okay. And so was it enforced, like was it used, I know you said it was started before COVID, but was this done like infrequently last year? Like I guess I'm trying to wonder how much of an impact is it to our students this year?
So, yeah, I mean, the reason obviously with COVID was just the idea of touching, anything. So, so when we came back, I think it was, we were slow to come back to the idea of asking teachers to collect cell phones. So it is, there's definitely, it's definitely a little bit of a culture shift in the school for the students to, to get used to the idea of turning over their cell phones. But, the reality is last year we did, have a policy that was, cell phones had to be off and away, but, we just think that this is going to be a little bit tighter, a little bit easier for everyone to just know that we're putting the phones away for, to get away from distractions.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think consistency will be key. I think that at that point it's just second nature, but between now and then, there's going to be that little rub where folks are going to forget, or you're going to lose some time because you went to your desk and sat down, and then it's like, oh, do you put your phone away? And it's like to do that. So that's one thing I just want folks to be cognizant of and be mindful of. Okay, so that's that one. So tardiness. So just to pick back up on that one. So I'm glad that we're being a little bit more forceful with the policy and holding folks accountable. Ms. Harvey, you mentioned the signs. So can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
So we had 5 for the 5 elementary schools. It's almost like a tea stand or a tent, and on one side at 8:15 or 8:10 we'll put it out, and it says, "Hooray! You're on time. We're going to have a great day." Then at 8:30, when the bell does ring, signifying that class is starting and anyone after the bell is late, we'll flip it to the other side and it says, oops, you're late. Please bring your child, escort your child into the building to sign your child in.
Gotcha.
So it just it helps the parents know I can't just drop the students off.
Gotcha. Okay. No, perfect. Thank you. And thanks for clarifying that it was all elementary schools. Yeah, I think that helps because I've seen in times, people come, like as I'm leaving and it's come at the cusp, people are coming in and they're just like, all right, go hurry up and get in. And it's like, yeah, so it makes sense. But speaking of drop off as well, and it's not necessarily a change, one thing that I've heard a lot last year was parents dropping off before 8:15. Has there been thought of like anything about the language there so that we don't have somebody saying, well, I have to go to work at, I gotta be at work at 8:15, I'm gonna drop you off at 8 o'clock, you just wait outside, like how do we prevent that from happening? Because
I think in the past too, at the building level, we've communicated with our families that it is an unsupervised drop-off. And I think we do have families that will drop off at 8:05, a little bit sometimes to get ahead of the line that's forming for drop-off, but that it is not an actively supervised drop-off time. So I do agree, and I think that could be something that we could consider adding, knowing that 8:15 is the start time when there are teachers that are outside greeting students as they arrive there. So that is, I think, something that we have seen. I don't know if it's consistent across all of our schools, but I do think we do see that.
And then the hood policy. Can we talk about that? So I guess elaborate with what the thought process around that is, I guess.
So we've been seeing a trend where students will wear their zip-up hoodies and have their hoods over their heads pretty much throughout a lesson or throughout the day, and asking them to remove the hoodies they don't want to, or if they say no. And it's just a way that if I have my hoodie up, I can't, or you can't see me. You can't make a connection with me. You can't see if I'm upset, if I'm engaged in the lesson. So we are just asking that students put your hoodie down. When you go outside, you can put it up, but during a lesson in the classroom, it needs to stay down.
Gotcha. Okay. So it would be akin to wearing a hat with a brim if it's in front of your face if you can't see that. So should that be
Sometimes
the same
with a
thing?
hat, with a baseball hat, I can still see because it doesn't engulf my whole face. Where these oversized sweatshirts, their whole face is covered.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think also too, at the upper grades, for earbuds in use too, with hoods up as well. So I think that's another reason.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing I had, cell phones in elementary school. I feel old saying this, but that's just like very shocking. Maybe like I got my personal cell phone in high school. My kids don't get it until middle school. Elementary school doesn't make sense, but everybody has their own policies. I think like a suggestion for the district. I mean, I'm an Apple guy, and you can lock down your phones and what kids can have access to. I don't know if maybe the district can provide some education.
Speaking
around,
my language, I like this.
What are
Keep
the
going.
things that you can do to lock it down? So at least from a school perspective, yeah, they can have it. They can use the phone to call if for some reason they need to use that in the emergency, God forbid. But all the other stuff that they can't get access to. So I don't know if we can maybe have like the DLIs, if there's any left, dig
Might
into
take a while.
that, and maybe get something out from a awareness perspective.
I think it's in our best interest to educate our community, particularly as like you're speaking as a parent. That's a great tip, and I think we can try to figure out how to put something out as a result of some of the shifts and the lack of our ability to fully staff some of these positions. That's something that with a fully staffed DLI department we could turn around quickly. But I think we share an interest in wanting parents to partner with us on preserving the amount of time we have. So I think it only behooves us to get something out around how to create, my student can communicate with 5 people, me, this person, grandma, grandpa, neighbor, and sibling, and that's their core group, and then beyond that, they can't access a phone from this time to text beyond their immediate family. That can be done through Apple. Every parent can do that. That's not a paid feature, but I think we can try to figure out how to get that out. I think that's part of a great parent ed type piece that we can put out to try to help us all. We're going to do this together. I think the last comment I would just make is you may notice a theme around trying to preserve the instructional moments, whether it's a cell phone, an earbud, or a hood, or whatever it is. It's about a commitment, not only at Franklin Public Schools, but you are seeing it in the news from many other districts around how do we try to limit the amount of distraction and take the not the need or the want to try to engage with a phone when it's very easily accessible, or an earbuds in my ear. And it's an effort to try to help us so that we can make sure that students are getting the most out of the time that they spend with us during those key moments of instructional time.
Well, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Val.
I love the cell phone policy. Thank you for implementing that. I know it was something I was really pushing to bring back. More so that the teachers don't have to police it. Like, I just want to like lighten the load a little bit. Like to your point, like before, like kids, the policy was to have them off, but then the teacher's like, are you recording under your desk? And it's like they're having to like get distracted. So that's awesome. I noticed when I was reading the policy, like it says like, you know, Franklin Public Schools isn't responsible for like damaged cell phones or whatnot. Like if something crazy happened and I don't know, the shoe holder thing fell off or whatever. So if people have like, you know, really, really expensive cell phones, just don't even bring them, because if you're not willing to like part with it. So is this something that the teachers feel like they're all doing? It's not something they think is optional and like, I'm going to be the nice teacher. Like, I just want to, yeah.
We talked today about the importance of consistency and how that is actually just going to help them run their classrooms better. And I think we're in a position where everybody is on board.
Okay.
And part of the planning of this policy, which was the work of our full admin team this summer, was very deliberate and also providing like the tiered interventions and responses to the infractions so that they have consistent language and consistent actions and responses to kids when they're not complying, which I think will be helpful.
Sure. And I know, you were an assistant for a bit and now you're the principal, and Mike, you're an assistant, and I hear great feedback about the work that the assistants do to kind of help manage the school and behaviors and things. So anything we can do, keep us posted. I don't want to put you on the spot, but as far as just kind of managing these behaviors and making it easy, so if a teacher, gets disrespected in the hallway, and the high school's big, there's thousands of kids there, you don't know everyone's name. I hear stories sometimes where it's like, this kid mouths off and says something completely insane to a teacher, and the teacher wants to figure out who it is, but it's like, do I go to my class now, or do I go try to figure out who this kid is, or do I stay after school and do I look at the tapes, and then I become like, like a prosecutor, detective. So anything we could do to help you, if we need to go back to old-fashioned citations or something to just make it like quick, easy response, just keep that in mind. And then I like the, if you refuse to be searched, that's an admission of guilt. I think that, it's like sometimes when we're saying these things out loud, it's like, oh, we're so harsh, we're like this institution. But I think that the kids who are sort of riddled with anxiety and like, they want this. It's like, I was talking to a teacher, I was like, whatever happened to the bus monitors, And it's like, I remember like we liked the bus monitors. They were protecting us from, little Johnny like putting boogers on us and things. Like those were the guys we liked. So I like these rules that help you out. The middle school, awesome. Let's just keep it that way because they don't know any better. Like the Val de No Cell, good job. You'll have your hands full next year. So I liked what you said about like having the tiered sort of late policy, because it does give you the ability to recognize when something's going on at home, and then you can get involved. So it's just awesome that I know that's the lens that all of you guys work under, but it's just nice to know that our kids are in your hands. The forgotten items thing. I remember firsthand, like walking in and Beth Simon, who used to be the admin at Horseman, was like, we're getting 3 items every 10 minutes. And it's like, there was a sheet outside, like an experiment one day. Did your child contact you? Or did you contact your child? Do they know that you're bringing this in? And like, I remember because you start to get information from the kids. And my daughter one day was like, some girl was screaming about using the phone because her mother didn't give her the big enough bag of Cheetos and things. So it's I know it's frivolous. I know these admins can't get any work done because we're just showing up, saving the day, my helicopter parent generation. So, so when they drop the item off in the foyer and there's no need to enter the school, is that like the little area prior to the second door?
Correct.
Okay. Hopefully that'll help a bit. Yeah, so I don't know. I know Lucas mentioned earlier that we don't have a driver shortage on the buses. Let's keep it that way. You know, some of these kids, the bus drivers get like shell-shocked with these kids on the bus, so thanks. Hopefully we have a great start to the new year. So I guess I don't have any questions, but great job. I'm with you. I've got your back.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. So to our members online, KP, do you have any questions?
Thank you, team. It's a great work for the policies. And I just have one question on the elementary school attendance. Like it says 10% of term and absence is excused, vacation enrollment, 10 days or more. Was that the same thing for the 23-24 or is this new one introducing 24-25?
I think we were in a pattern of looking at attendance in January, and we would monitor for students, and I think that at some point the absentees were a little bit more excessive by the time we hit January in some instances, so we felt by being more proactive in communicating with families, it would be a good way to reach out and connect and how can we support your family. If there is something, just kind of opening up a conversation earlier rather than later around attendance and how we can support in a more timely way.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you very much. It's a great team effort. Thank you.
Thank you, KP. And Chair Callahan?
Thank you all very much for that. Just a comment with in terms of the cell phone policy at the high school. Really just want to commend you guys for the work and really just for the sensible policy and practice that kind of we're seeing here. I've read stories over the years where school districts have tried to implement this and either they've gone for some kind of complex like locker systems that frankly we can't afford. And it seems like over the years a lot of other school districts also can't continue to afford. Or other ones where the phones aren't with the kiddos, and just as a parent in today's kind of school culture, that is something that kind of just does terrify me. And so just the idea that this is something that isn't going to be a financial hit, it's something that's easily kind of just done year over year over year, but at the same time keeps the phones just in the physical classroom with the kiddos, even though they don't have access to it. Is, like I said, just as a parent, kind of gives me peace of mind. So great work on this. I'm sure there was a lot of back and forth and different iterations that kind of came about, but I really love how this is going to be implemented. And, I hope nothing but the best of success, and I hope that it's, you really do kind of see that big academic increase with the decrease in distractions like that we're shooting for. So kudos, great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for all the work you've been doing on the handbooks, but also just all the preparation you've been doing for this year. So just I want to thank you all for that. And then a couple questions of mine as well regarding to the high school cell phone policy. So from what I understand, at the start of each class period, it'll be the expectation that the students bring the cell phone to their particular slot. That there's not going to be like a search from the teachers at all. They'll be asked, and students will be expected to put it up there. So, what in terms of the intervention or disciplinary measures exist if a student's caught lying? Like, not that someone like is honest, mistaken, forgets, but like actually is, you know, asked to put their cell phone, says they don't have it, and then is later caught texting or watching a video or something. What's involved at that point?
That's a great question. So we're going to have a tiered response as well, you know, so if we saw that student in the hallway and they actually had a phone, and they're in the hallway during instructional time, you know, we would encourage whoever saw that to send them to the house office, speak to an assistant principal, and, you know, it would start with a warning and to take the phone for the rest of the day, and then there'll be a tiered response that would get, you know, increasingly more serious. But really, our goal is just to not have the phone. So we're not really interested in consequences that aren't logical like that.
Yeah.
What we're really looking for is just to have the student get accept the idea that they can't have their phone during instructional time.
Yeah, and I think that's very reasonable. It makes the most sense. And I guess I'd more just ask just so we're not like creating an unintentional loophole that, you know, if a student's thinking like, oh, well, they're not going to actually check, so I don't want to. But so I just won't tell them about it. But it's encouraging that there'll still be that disciplinary mechanism in place. That'll be an effective policy that way. And then another question is to follow up. So you mentioned like the different intervention tiers. So will those kind of like carry over from day to day, or like is it just like a new day, like if you start back at tier 1, and like how does that work if you notice that there's a particular student who you keep having issues with?
Right. This is also a great question. So I'd say it depends a little bit. We're really encouraging the relationships between teachers and students, right? So if this infractions happens in a classroom, and we really, you know, also want teachers to own their classroom space, right, and command their own space. So that first sort of tier and those initial things would happen, and the intervention would take place between the teacher and the student in whatever consequence. And we gave, you know, suggestions, a conversation, a call home. Once the student gets to the point where it's repeated and the teacher decides to write a conduct referral on Aspen, then it becomes recorded. And so that would then build up. So they might have, you know, the assistant principal would read the infraction, and they might see that one student's name, it's repeated, and now they have, you know, 1 in one class, but they're up to 3 or 4 infractions over a course of a number of days. So the consequences would be progressive as it builds up. So it doesn't necessarily reset every day, because, you know, if that's the case, they might have a consequence one day and then have to start over, and that there goes our tiered system, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Thank you. And thank you for making this just a well thought out policy that's enforceable, because I think I'm very supportive of this. You know, not only are we trying to instill in our students, you know, academic learning, but also we're teaching them life skills, and being able to concentrate and focus on an assignment is something that you need to do in life. And I think that's important that we're also reinforcing that here in Franklin Public Schools. So thank you, and I really hope that you find success in this and that it creates a better culture for students and teachers through this. So yeah, thank you very much. And then one last question, maybe Lucas, this is more directed your way for the admin team. So the new policy, for the district policy regarding the collection of outstanding school meal account balances. I know this is a new thing, and we had some questions about this in the past. Can you maybe just reiterate this?
Sure. Dr. Rogers actually is prepared to speak to that. She can. The school meal policy?
Yeah.
She oversees policy, that's why.
So just a few updates as to the modifications that were made last school year. As it relates to the credit balances, is that?
Yeah, exactly. Just because we've had a number of inquiries about this in the past, and I just thought it would be a good reminder before the school
Sure,
year.
absolutely. So these were the few updates. So if you have prepaid funds on your account through Unipay, there is a process which, well, every school year those funds will carry over to the next school year. Should you want to transfer any balances to a sibling, that can be done through Unipay. You can, of course, reach out to Food Services, and they'll assist in that process. You could also, at the end of the year, if you are transferring out of public Franklin Public Schools, or if your student graduated, you can request to transfer those funds to another student that's still enrolled. And we, again, can help you with that process, and you can call the food service department for support with that. Additionally, if, again, you graduate or you move out of the Franklin Public Schools, you need to request a refund for any balance over $25. So those funds will remain in your child's account for 1 calendar year. And once those requests are made, that refund will be made to the families. Should the request extend beyond 1 school year, then those funds will become part of Franklin Public Schools, and we'll use those monies to offset uncollected fees and things of that nature.
All right. Thank you very much for that
Sure.
recap. Appreciate that. All right, and any other questions that come to mind?
Actually, I do. Sorry.
All right, Al?
I should write the other ones down. Can we just expand on how families are getting the yearbooks, just so folks, if they're not aware? I know we'll do our approval process, but what happens next, and how do people get the yearbooks? Oh, not
Sorry.
yearbooks, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Handbooks, sorry.
It's like, oh, we'll get back to you on that one. So after the handbooks are approved, we will post them online. They'll be available. Parents can access them. Any parent who would wish to have a printed copy, we will provide a printed copy of the specific school handbook. They just need to email the school secretary directly and say, I'd like a printed copy.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well,
And parents do have to sign off that they read the handbook, and I'm sure a lot of parents are going to read the 156-page handbooks, so.
Yeah.
absolutely. All right. Well,
Yearbooks are the spring.
Yeah. I'm already at the end of the school year, sorry.
Get ahead of ourselves, huh? All right, well, thank you all. Okay, so we'll do these 3 votes for the handbooks, and we'll move on. All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the elementary student handbooks as detailed.
So moved.
Second?
All right, because we have members online, we need to do a roll call vote. So Gallagher,
Yes.
Griffith,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Sampali,
Yes.
and Callahan,
Yes.
and McNeil, yes. Motion passes. Next, I will entertain a motion to approve the middle school student handbooks as detailed.
So moved.
Second?
All right. Gallagher,
Yes.
Griffith,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Sampali,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
and McNeil, yes. Motion passes. And I will entertain a motion to approve the FHS student handbook as detailed.
So moved.
I'll second.
There we go. Gallagher,
Yes.
Griffith,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
O'Sullivan,
Yes.
Sampali,
Yes.
and Callahan,
Yes.
and McNeil, yes. All right. Motion passes. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good year.
Chairman McNeil, or Vice Chair McNeil, and the
Callahan.
Chair Callahan. I'm noticing in the agenda, the ECDC handbook had no substantive changes, but it was included in in your packet for approval. Our principal for the ECDC is here, Miss Kim Taylor, and that was supposed to be listed with elementary and then the early childhood handbook, which you have access to for review. I'm wondering if you would be willing to include that as part of a vote. So it may require you to amend the agenda to include an additional action item, but you'd need the committee to vote to approve that as part of the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, so we could.
I apologize for the complication here.
It's no problem. Yeah, we could just do a separate vote for that, right?
You would, so you just, I think it's not on the agenda, so you need 2 votes. One to approve the addition of the approval of the ECDC student handbook for vote to be put on the agenda. And then we'll pick up with the next part.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to add the ECDC handbook to our agenda tonight.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Gallagher,
Yes.
Griffith,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
O'Sullivan,
Yes.
Sampali,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
and McNeil, yes. Motion passes. All right.
Excellent.
Let's entertain a motion to approve the CDC handbook.
So moved.
Second?
Gallagher?
Yes.
Griffith?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Sapali?
Yes.
Callahan?
Yes.
And McNeil, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right.
And thank you, Ms. Taylor,
Yes,
for...
thank you, Ms. Taylor, for
Yeah.
being here. There was no major changes other than adding her name to the handbook.
Great. Hopefully,
Good
any
change.
questions? All right.
All right.
I see next up on discussion action items, we have FY25 revised final budget vote. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All right. Could we get some details on this, please?
Yep, so basically what's before you is we've finalized the budget season, but you had taken votes to approve the final budget and then the additional funding that we had received subsequent to when you approved. So for auditing purposes, the bottom line, so it's basically totaling in the same packet you had last meeting, but for compliance purposes, we need to approve the full amount allocated for the school year. So it's combining all the previous approvals that you've given into one number for compliance purposes. So I would recommend approval of the FY25 school budget in the amount of $77,470,190 as discussed.
All right. Having a motion and a second, do we have any discussion or questions?
So I guess my question, not necessarily specific about the budget now, I'm just more just thinking next year, right? So when we do the budget, whatever we are looking to grow by this would be the base that we would look at, and it would be increased by whatever we're allocated from the town, is that correct?
This includes the 1 million for the fiscal year of one-time funding.
Okay.
So I would say that we wouldn't want to base the perpetual funding based off this number, but this is a number for us to operate within this school year, including all monies coming to the school in one number.
Yeah, the base would be less than 1 million.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, a good clarifying question.
Yeah, that was my question too. So John, you got this. You know that we're already starting $1 million in the hole if we're at level. Well, we won't be, but that's, yeah. So no questions.
For our members online, any comments or questions on this?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
All right. So, vote will come on the motion. Gallagher?
Yes.
Griffith?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Sampali?
Yes.
Callahan?
Yes.
And McNeil? Yes, motion passes. And last but certainly not least, policy, second reading, entertain a motion to adopt policy BBEBD.
So moved.
Second?
All right. Anything on this one?
This is second read. We presented the policy last meeting. This is as per the process to allow us to expand our fundraising opportunities. And we went through in detail some of the questions from last meeting. And Dr. Rogers, I don't know if there's anything to add, but we're looking for approval so we can implement this as we kick the school year off.
All right. Any comments or questions on this?
Nope.
Anything from our members online?
All set?
All right. Vote will come on the motion. Gallagher?
Yes.
Griffith?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Sampali?
Yes.
Callahan?
Yes.
And McNeil? Yes, motion passes. All right. Next on, discussion only items. See, we have a new hire updates.
The new hire update I provided during my superintendent report. I see it listed here in the agenda, but I did provide the data that I had available for this update. And the document I shared with you earlier was the latest information we have.
All right, excellent. Any discussion on this? Any comments or questions from members online?
No, good.
All set.
All right, thank you very much. Information matters, moving right along, so superintendent evaluation, no updates at this time. For budget, no updates at this time. However, for the joint Budget Subcommittee, we have a meeting on September 11th. I believe that is a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, at 7 PM in the council chambers. And policy, O'Sullivan,
Nothing at this time.
community relations, Charles?
Yep, so, as of right now, nothing's on the books. However, given that it's the start of the school year, we're gonna let things kind of settle first. I will be reaching out to the superintendent and also the committee members just to find availability, and then we'll get into our cadence. There'll probably be setting goals for this year, talking about the new website, and actually, nice plug, the new website is up. I like it. I think it's better than the old one. Is it perfect? No, but we can work towards it. I think it's a great starting point. But we'll talk about that. How do we improve it, and how do we leverage all of the communication capabilities that come from it? And then also, if you all don't have the app, get the app on your phone. It just makes it so easy to be able to kind of keep up to date what's happening. Move school committee meetings onto your calendar, onto your phone, which is so you don't miss out on when these events are happening. And I know there's probably going to be a dozen different ways that the schools are using it just to keep people aware of what's happening, because there's a lot of stuff happening this year with redistricting, going to go live next year, you know, potential override stuff, all the things that you want to be aware of. The app should help keep you looped in. So.
Thank you. See, comprehensive facilities, Chair Callahan?
Thank you very much. So I think we could, I know one of the biggest concerns we kind of had was getting up too far ahead of it, especially like boundary lines and kiddos going to the wrong schools tomorrow. Now that school will be in session, everybody knows, you know, what school they'll be going to, and that the changes that we've already voted on and we'll be working towards aren't coming to effect until next fall. I think Superintendent Jagir, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think probably at our next meeting on September 10th, we'll start to be able to hear more information about kind of the work that's already been done, where we stand, and some of the next steps forward.
Correct. We will be providing more information once we kick the year off, and you can expect to hear about that in our future school committee meetings. The other comment you made, I'm recalling, you said, oh, it was the Comprehensive Facilities Subcommittee you mentioned, Vice Chair Callahan, McNeil, is not a committee anymore. It was voted as not a committee. So I just would point out that we have to provide updates on the master planning, but that particular committee was voted to be disbanded after that study was done. We need to now incorporate new methods in which we're working together to provide information to the community and seek input, but I wanted to just put that out there as we continue to move this forward.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Joint PCC, Charles.
Yep. So far, I've reached out to the PCC leadership team to get their availability, trying to figure out what works best for our meetings, because there's going to be a lot of discussion on how do we transition from the existing PCC structure onto the new PCC structure. So they'll be ongoing throughout the year, in parallel with the redistricting topics as well. So we don't have a date yet, but it's probably going to be late September, early October-ish. So hopefully next week I'll have a final, next meeting I'll have a final date.
Excellent, thank you. School Wellness Advisory Council, Sampali.
We haven't met this month. We are anticipating next month.
All right, thank you. Mental Health and Wellbeing Task Force, O'Sullivan.
Same, we haven't met yet.
But I do have some things to advertise, if I could.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Please do follow.
We will be joining the rec department and be at the movie night on September 6th on the town common. They will be playing Inside Out. Members of the Mental Health and Wellbeing Task Force will be there playing games, making popcorn, and doing other fun things and handing out resources. Also, we will also have a table at the Harvest Fest on September 27th. Our first meeting is anticipated to be in October, so I'll be sending out emails soon.
Excellent, thank you. Excellent movie choice as well. And then last DEI committee, Paula.
We have not met.
All right. There we go. So then we have the consent agenda.
I recommend approval of the minutes from your August 13th, 2024 meeting as detailed.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as detailed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Do a roll call vote. Gallagher?
Yes.
Griffith?
Yes.
Charles?
Question.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
I wasn't here that meeting, so do I vote or not? I don't.
You can still vote
Okay.
to approve the minutes, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Ms. Sullivan? Sampali?
Yes.
Callahan?
Yes.
McNeil, yes. Motion carries. And citizens' comments. Are there any citizens in the audience, in person, online, who would like to make a comment on an item not on tonight's agenda that and falls within the committee's purview? Do we have anyone online? Or are we Steve?
Just checking right now.
All right. Not seeing anyone, so then we'll move on to new business.
So new business, it is the season where we start to begin to share our district improvement plans and then our level-based school improvement plans with the school committee for approval. So the approval process just starts throughout the fall. Handbooks is the start. I would put out, we have been reflecting on handbook and the policy approval window, and we are considering moving that up somewhat, as opposed to doing it in late August, maybe trying to move that up to a meeting, an earlier meeting, if possible, which would require us to have that information available in time enough for you to read it and have it. But I just wanted to put that out there to you all as we continue to plan and look at the time frame. So that's one thing I would say on the handbooks. For next meeting, we're looking at the district improvement plan, which will trigger the school improvement plans. We have a Franklin TV appointment. Every 3 years, you have to appoint a liaison. I will have more information. I'm making sure I want to make sure I have the criteria correct from Franklin TV. And then we will also have an update on our beginning weeks of school and let you know how that's progressing throughout the time, along with other updates that you would expect to see around the reorganization, the staffing, and if we have any other transportation information that's appropriate at that time, we'll share that as well.
Thank you very much. All right, and last, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Gallagher?
Yes.
Griffith?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Sampali?
Yes.
Callahan?
Yes.
McNeil? Yes. Good night, everyone.
I'm just saying, one of these days the people on Zoom are going to say no.